Joining us in the Informer studio, the man from Penso, his name is Constantine Frantzeskos. Welcome to the studio. First time for us to have you in here.
It is indeed, George.
We want to talk about a bundle of things that have been cropping up, and of course over the last 24 hours the big news has been, I suppose, Facebook's decision to reach out there and say to government and all others, the old media platforms, you're a no-go zone on our platform. What have you made of that?
Well, I like to take a bit of a historical view.
Okay.
And that is that if we look at a lot of the classic print media organisations, they made most of their money on things like car listings, job listings, real estate listings. They're classifieds, the rivers of gold as they used to call them.
Rivers of gold that used to run, that's right.
Now, they didn't innovate, so cars went to car sales, jobs went to Seek, real estate went to realestate.com.au, which is still partly owned by News. And therefore, they lost three major rivers of gold, three profit crutches.
Yep.
Then what they did is they thought, well, all we've got is journalism, which is obviously very valuable and very important, difficult to make money out of. So how have they done it? Advertising and subscription. Now, for the first probably 20 years, they didn't have proper subscriptions because they gave it away for free.
Correct. Yep.
And advertising was barely any good. So therefore, what they did is more or less said, we'll work out a business model down the track. The problem is, they've had these friends, and I'm going to call them friends, Google and Facebook, that represent more than 40% of the traffic that goes to news sites. So in other words, these people have, or these organisations have sent 40% of the traffic of upstream traffic to the news organisations. The news organisations have said, we don't have to bother building new audiences and finding people because Google and Facebook will be there for us. Then what's happened is that they've struggled even more. Their subscriptions aren't working as well as they would have liked. They haven't built things like micropayments for, if I just want to read one article, maybe pay 5 cents. And as a result, what have they done? The classic move, gone to Canberra for help.
Yes, on their knees.
Now, Facebook has said, well, you know what, maybe we'll just not refer traffic because we'd rather do that than have to pay you to refer traffic to you. So that's where we're in the position we're in this morning.
Why did Google bend? Why has Google said to Nine, $30 million a week, chump change for us, we can do it, no problem?
Excellent question. Well, I think if we look at the way in which Facebook's business model works,
right.
Facebook in the old days, by the old days I mean even 1 or 2 years ago, if you set up a Facebook page as a company or even as a person, you'd post a lot of your things up there, and the estimate was that about 15% of your followers and fans would see that content. And what Facebook's done is they've recognised, well, we want to make more money as a platform. They listed 8 or 9 years ago. And so what if we basically reduce what's called organic reach? In other words, reduce the amount of people.
By natural numbers, yes.
Naturally, instead of 15 out of 100 followers seeing your content, now maybe only 2 out of 100 will see your content. So how do you make up that gap? You make up that gap by paying.
Paying to boost.
So if you are the Informer and you want more people, your own followers, or more people generally to see your content, you've got to boost that, you've got to pay. So it's gone from a free channel to a paid channel.
Got it.
Now, imagine you are News Corp and Nine, Fairfax, and you've got shareholders and you've got pressure of your own.
Yep.
What do? Do you say, well, actually, we're fine with what was maybe 30 or 40% of our traffic now dropping down to maybe 3 or 4%? No. You have to fight back. And instead of fighting back through innovation and through trying to come up with new ways of doing that, they've gone to the government. Now, what's different with Google is that Google, only a percentage of search, so if I search for, I don't know, news today, or it could be footy scores or whatever it might be.
Collingwood,
Collingwood, of course.
That'll keep us busy.
Oh, yeah. How many hours do we have?
Plenty.
What will happen is that there are a number of paid searches that appear, and then there are a number of free searches. And there is a view that the number of paid searches in Google will only be a certain amount. They're going to limit the amount of paid searches you see because you want to be able to actually see organic search. You want to be able to see the things that you're looking for rather than what the advertisers might want
pushing
to
you
push.
to, encouraging
Precisely.
you to go to. Yeah.
So there is a view that potentially Google has come to some sort of agreement to more or less keep the government at bay, also because they don't have a pure paid model.
But it is a precedent, right? So is this now pressure for Facebook, or is it a completely new algorithm for Facebook and they're saying, no, that's your business, this is our business, as far as we're concerned, you're banning them, or we're banning you?
Well, I can see things from Facebook's perspective, which is if the government is going,
Let's pause there for a moment. What's next?
Very good
What
question.
can the startups, the small businesses that aren't your mainstream dinosaurs of the past, what can they do?
That's a great question. If we again go back to the whole history of Facebook, we were used to, we got high on the idea that we'd post things and thousands of people would see it.
Correct. Yeah.
Now Facebook's evolving to a model which is it's pay to play. It's a bit like if we were to turn up to 3AW today and say, by the way, can we run some ads? Can you just play our 30-second ad? 3AW would laugh in your face. But imagine if, until last week, they said, yeah, sure, you know what? 1 in every 5 ads will run for free. That's where we're at the moment. Had we been accustomed to Facebook being a pay-to-play platform from the beginning, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Wow.
But now we are. So the question is, where to from here? Facebook, Google, and a lot of these websites, Reddit, for example, have always tried to be the front page of the internet. There was a saying that Facebook was trying to eat the web. In other words, everything that would appear, they'd want it to appear within a social context. I want to make sure that everything I do is through the lens of my friends.
That's why you've seen them acquire Instagram and all those others, WhatsApp, and bring them into the party. And of course, under the same rule, we're going to set a whole new laws, new parameters, new borders for everyone. And now just pull one of those borders shut. Now, there's a whole new app that's just launched over the last year, but over the last 3 weeks, it's made a huge jump. You know what I'm talking about? Clubhouse. Yeah? From the moment Elon Musk, the Elon Musk effect took hold, that company went like Zoom pre-COVID. Anyway, if you want to use a platform to talk to one another, you can do it. It's called Zoom. And people were waiting. Along came COVID, a desperate need to connect. Along, it's gone through the roof. Clubhouse now says, hey, you can't see anything, but you might be able to dip in if you're invited and get to listen on some tremendous stories, gossip, you name it, from some of the biggest names in the world. But you need an invite.
That's
what
right.
What have you made of that?
Well, first things first, I don't know whether I can plug something, but I've got a couple of invites for sale, George, if you've got any.
Okay, all right, okay.
If you've, you know.
Go.
No, all jokes aside, I think what's
I want
really
Elon Musk first.
Yeah, done. No, the thing about Clubhouse that's really interesting, 2 things.
Yeah.
One of them is, if we look at generally social media, YouTube's for video.
Yes.
Instagram's for pictures. There have been very few social networks.
Just for the audio.
For your ears. Now that's one thing, and what does that mean?
That's where the best gossip comes from.
That's right. What did you hear?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, it's a great synergy. I love it.
Yeah, and so, you don't have to get dressed up.
No.
You don't have to worry about looking good like I worried all morning.
Celebrities don't have to worry about how they got up this morning. You're listening in. You don't know if they're dressed, undressed, if they've shaven, unshaven, whatever. If they're in a daze or a haze,
that's right.
It don't matter at all.
That's right.
Whatever's coming out of the microphone.
And there is something about radio that it's quite an intimate format, or radio.
It's the immediacy.
Yeah.
That's the magic.
And the idea that you can bring people in and out of the conversation, it's an open conversation. So I really like it for those reasons. The thing that I find a little bit, I'll say, at odds with where we are in the world, is that so much of what we consume these days is not what we call appointment-based media. In other words, 6 o'clock news.
Oh, yes.
You had to watch it at 6 o'clock. Whereas now, The Informer, you could be watching it on your morning commute, evening, afternoon, whatever it might be.
On your device, whenever you so choose.
And so that's added a lot of flexibility and opened the aperture, so to speak, to people being able to consume stuff that they might not have been able to.
That's a good analogy, open the aperture, the lens, changing it. Yeah, very good.
But Clubhouse, you have to be there right then. There's no way you can...
There's no record.
Oh, did you hear that chat last week?
No record mode, okay.
There's no record button.
So it's the then, so it's the now and what's happening.
It's live.
Yeah.
Now live, as you know, has two... It's a double-edged sword. You've either got to watch it live...
Correct.
Or...
Do you know, many years ago, I said to Graham Kennedy, when we were doing Coast to Coast, he said to me, I've got some international guests, I want you to pre-record the news. I said, I beg your pardon. The minute I record the news, we're captives. You know, once you mention that you've recorded the news, it can't be changed. You're locked in. He said, no. It's a one and only chance. I've got these guests in from New York. I want to see them. He was the executive producer. I said, all right, I'll do it. Under real pressure, and I was more than noisy about it. He knew I wasn't happy. Anyway, I've recorded. I'm about to leave the door. Left in the control. I'm in the car park at Channel 9, and Graham Kennedy sends out a lackey to go call George back. I've gone. No, guys. Tell Graham I've recorded the news. It's okay. No, you got to come back. Why? What's the problem? Roy Orbison died. So, if it hadn't been for the big O, we would have started doing pre-recorded news. And I've always been a great believer. Once it's recorded, it ain't newsworthy.
Well, it's a bit like sport, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Great
you know
example.
The score? Don't tell me the score.
Don't tell me the score.
Yeah.
You know, and again, this is, I know, something you and I have spoken about in the past. What was the Champions League score this morning? You know what? You might watch it that day, you might watch it the next day, but you're not going to watch Champions League in a month.
Yeah, correct.
Whereas, and it's the same with news, it's the same with anything live. It has
but you will listen to a podcast, won't you? Because
you can listen
niche. It's more niche than
you can
anything.
watch a movie, you can listen to a podcast, you can
100%.
watch a TV show. I mean, my wife still castigates me because I haven't seen The Sopranos yet. But, you know, I can watch The Sopranos next week and not have any diminishing enjoyment.
No.
Because there's no...
Game of Thrones, though, you couldn't. You had to lock down for 8 years and get through it.
But there's what's called a decay rate. And that's the thing. If we keep that in mind, there's some content that has a decay rate. Live, Clubhouse, sport, news.
Yes.
Whereas a lot of things in the world don't. And that's what I think is an interesting kind of division.
So what's next for Facebook?
Well, Facebook's going to be charging more and more to be seen, and I think really that's the bottom line.
What's the audience going to do?
Well, I think.
What's your gut feeling?
My gut feeling is that every channel has its time in the sun.
Yep.
Every channel has a time when it was the front page of the internet. Search was extremely prominent, totally dominant years ago, and then it faded as social networks came up.
Yeah, and attitudes changed. So I think in digital generally, content doesn't really change. There is always video, there's audio, there's text, there's images. Yeah.
But the ways in which we access that content changes. So I think that I still think Facebook's a fantastic platform that's growing. It's still extremely successful. But in this context, I think what we're going to see is Facebook potentially saying, well, look, we're a paid platform. If you want to be on our platform, you pay us, and we don't make any other promises about what we can deliver.
Now, does that stand them up to be run over by a whole new platform?
Potentially. Potentially it does. And the platform that I'd like to see is a platform where some of the media companies in Australia may get together and say, is there an opportunity for us to put together a micropayments platform? In other words, I don't want to subscribe.
I have never heard the micropayments platform concept before until you mentioned it a little bit earlier on in our conversation. I love that idea. If I want just the one story, I don't need to pay $5 or $4 or whatever the price is.
Maybe 5 cents.
5 cents.
Maybe half a cent.
Wow.
And the idea that I have a news wallet, let's call it.
Yes, good idea.
Where I could just read an article from The Age, read an article from the Brisbane Times and the article from the Herald Sun. Fantastic.
Yeah, I like that idea. I hope they're listening. Okay. As we started this conversation, Constantine Frantzeskos is from Penso. They are experts at digital optimization. If you want to know any more, reach out to him. Constantine. And, oh, by the way, did I mention, he's a huge Collingwood man. You should be on the board, mate.
Well,
We'll talk soon.
maybe we should. Good on you, George.
Good on you, mate.